Hello, I am Lala Petty, a junior at the University of Notre Dame, and today I am your host as we continue the conversation, Managing Your Health Abroad. Thanks for joining us today. With me today, I have Bianca Wajaya, Naya Brummer, and Naz Udekwe. And we were the first cohort after the pandemic in 2020. While we've all had transformative experiences, we've also experienced some lows. Today, we will be talking about an open conversation about this complex topic in hopes of helping other students in the future with their experience abroad. So again, welcome Bianca, Naya, and Naz. Thank you all for joining me today. We will start with, some introductions. Bianca, you can start.
Okay. Hi. As Lala said, my name is Bianca. I'm a junior from Austin, Texas, and I'm studying neuroscience with a minor in Catholic social tradition, and I went abroad in fall 2021 with the cohort in Galway.
Awesome.
Again, my name is Naya. I am also a junior. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I studied abroad in Dublin in the fall.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Naz. I'm also a junior. I study abroad in London in the fall, and I'm from Minot, North Dakota, and I'm studying science pre-professional with a minor in theology.
Beautiful. And then again, I'm Lala Petty. I am a junior, and I am a double major in science pre-professional studies in Spanish, and I am from South Bend, so native here. And yes, so with that being said, we are talking about managing our health abroad, and this is a super important topic to me, and I really, really thank you all for joining me today. I want to start off by asking, why do you think this topic specifically is so important?
Yeah, I think for me, it's not something I really thought about when I went abroad. You
Yeah.
just expect study abroad to just be like all completely fun and not
Yes.
kind of like letting go of all your worries that you have at Notre Dame. And it's not something you think about until you get there and you're like, oh, like I'm feeling homesick, or I miss my friends from back home, or I'm like, or you're shaken out of your regular routine and schedule, and you don't really know how to navigate that. So I think for me, like having more preparation, or just kind of someone telling me like, hey, these are some of the things you'll have to deal with, I think is really important.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that it's something you don't expect at all.
Yes.
Again, like you were saying, there's all the highs, but you don't think about the lows at all. I think even with me coming here as a freshman to Notre Dame, I definitely the ground was shaken beneath me. And going abroad, I felt the exact same way. It was kind of a reminder, almost a little bit of like a trigger as to what I felt kind of that first semester freshman year. And so for me, I think it's just important that we kind of prepare ourselves. I know they say like you're going to feel 5,000 different things, but it doesn't feel real until you're in it, until you're there, because it's something that you've never felt before. And so I think it helps to have kind of people talk about their personal experiences to kind of help prepare you for what you're going to step into.
Right.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I feel like just every time you step out of your comfort zone, there's always that element of, what am I going to go through? There's that anxiety to it. And then
Yes.
studying abroad is no different. Like, a lot of people have never left the country, and other people have never lived in another country before. So when you study abroad and you're living in a different country, in a new environment for 4 months, and it's like you're just thrown into this whole new experience, there's a lot of things that you're not really expecting. So I think that's why it's a really important thing to talk about beforehand.
Exactly. I agree with everything you guys said, and I also feel like studying abroad, of course, broaden our horizons, and we are, again, open to all of these new experiences. But something that I did realize when I was abroad was that my mental health is a part of my daily life, and that's when I realized that it's super, super important. And my deepest apologies. Before we even started this, I should have asked you guys, how are you feeling today? I want to ask how you guys feel emotionally, mentally, and physically. And I want you guys to rate it 1 through 10. And you can think about it. I'll start first because I just threw that at you guys. Physically, I feel like I'm at an 8. I'm here. I'm present. Emotionally, I would say 5, 6. And then mentally, I would say a 7.
Okay, I think physically I'm also pretty high, probably an 8.
Okay.
Emotionally, also pretty good. I'd say maybe 6 or 7, a little bit lower.
Yes,
but,
beautiful.
Mentally, very burnt out.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. End of the semester kind of vibes. So I think probably much lower. I'd say 4.
Yes.
I think physically for me, I'm at about a 5. I'm feeling kind of tired. Wasn't very well rested. Emotionally, I feel like I'm at an 8. We're feeling good today. We're very motivated. Mentally, Probably about a 6 or 7, just because there's, again, like you were saying, end of the semester, these next couple weeks are a lot. So kind of trying to prepare myself for what's about to come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How about you, Nas?
For me, physically, I feel like about an 8 like the rest of you guys. Like,
Okay.
Last week I was very sick, so I feel a lot better now. So I'm
Exactly.
thinking an 8. Emotionally, 7 or 8. I actually feel pretty good today, which is good.
That's awesome.
But mentally, like you guys said, the end of the semester fatigue is starting to hit, so I'm like a 5 or 6.
Thank you. No, I really wanted to ask that because I feel like it's very easy to explain how you feel or explain something that's very complex in our minds with a number. So I feel like that was a great way for us to really, get a vibe off of each other to see how we're all feeling today. So thank you guys for sharing that. But there's something with all of you that I've heard in common, and it's this like word preparation. What do you think could have better prepared you when you went abroad in terms of your health, and whether that's your physical health, emotional health, mental health, but then also just preparing to be in a different country, period?
I could,
You guys, anybody
I
can start.
So I think one of the big things that I say anytime someone asks me about going abroad was the fact that I jumped into it completely just blind to everything.
Yes.
I didn't want to know what I was getting myself into. I didn't want to have any expectations because I didn't want to disappoint myself. And so I just kind of jumped straight in and kind of took it for what it was. And so in terms of preparation, then this might be contrary to popular belief, but I feel like it helped me to just enter into it and to take it all in, to feel it all, and then go from there with whatever it was I was feeling. So maybe in terms of preparation, the one thing is to just let yourself feel everything that you're feeling. Don't try to push it away. Don't try to block it out. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and deal with it accordingly from that point. Because I think in terms of like preparation, of course, we did like all of our training videos with the MBI and things like that. But again, all of that is hard to put into context until you're actually in that position and you're actually feeling all of those things. And so in terms of preparation, you can say like, oh, you need to do this, this, and this, but until you're actually there, none of it really matters. And so I think for me, it's just kind of allowing yourself to take in everything as it comes and go from there.
Love that.
Yeah, I go
Anyone
next.
else?
Going off that, I kind of did have the same mentality a little bit because I like to just be completely open-minded into any experience I'm going into. But at the same time, I would have really appreciated if I was connected to more people who were in my program before, and just so they could tell me some of the challenges they face and like how they got through them or what tools they could use to attack those problems beforehand. I knew a few people that went to London before, and I did have some conversations with them, and I feel like that did help a little bit. But just like if there was some system, or you could just like, I don't know, ask a question, and then anyone who went to that program could answer stuff like that. I think that would like prepare me a little more.
Yeah, I was also the same way. Like I didn't really talk to very many people who went to my program beforehand, so I was going in blind. I didn't really know how like the Galway program was structured. I didn't really know like how Irish universities worked. So I remember like one of the biggest stressors for when my entire cohort got there was class registration. Because we didn't sign up for classes until we got to the site. Yeah, and it was a couple days in to the program, and we get our list of classes, and it's like none of the classes that we had originally planned to take were on that list, because they change it every semester and every single year. So a lot of the classes that I was planning to take, I kind of had to like switch last minute and then think like, oh, like this isn't approved by Notre Dame, so I have to go through that process too, like while I'm still trying to register for classes. So I think like if I had someone just like tell me that, because a lot of it was just like our program coordinator telling us like, hey, it's going to be okay, like classes will work themselves out. But then like, you know, as like Notre Dame students who are constantly like just stressed about this kind of stuff, we're just like, no, like our semester is going to be awful, like we won't get any credits. Yeah, so that was something really stressful, and I think like that could have been kind of like easily like much less stressful if I had like an upperclassman tell me that like classes are going to be different, like you are going to go through this, that's just something to like watch out for and just know that it'll work out.
Yes. And I also hear from all of you guys that you wish that you would have known more people in your program beforehand. I think that's great that you guys said that, because that is something that we could tackle in the future. Do you guys feel like you would like to see more like bonding experiences before we go abroad? Because I know we all have the preparation like meetings and we all meet with each other. We get our traveling list, our expenses, things like that. But would you also like to see something where we all go to South Quad? It doesn't have to be anything, extravagant, but we all go to South Quad and we have like a get to know each other like meeting or something like that. Or do you guys have any other ideas of what we can do for the next cohorts just so it's better for them?
I think it sounds more like you guys want to hear from people who already went through the program versus people who are in the program with you right now. Because I think that's part of the experience when you get there is making friends and getting to know all the people that's in your program with you. But I think that maybe if there was an opportunity to, because each culture is different as well. It's like a lot of what you're saying, like Irish culture is just very laid back and American culture is very like standardized and rigorous. And so that was something that was very different and something that we had to get used to, especially as college students, looking at what our semester would look like. And so in terms of just having those conversations with students who, like maybe meet and greets with students who've already gone through the program would be very helpful, even coming down to places to grocery shop or kind of where did you go on the weekends or like what was your favorite place to go in Dublin, like what were some hidden gems, things like that to help you kind of acclimate yourself better instead of like dropping in and literally just kind of being like, like especially again with all those overwhelming emotions at the same time that you're trying to manage, just having some sort of direction from a place of I went through this already, here's what helped me, or I was here before, here's what I liked to do while I was here, from someone who actually experienced it the same way that you did.
I have another question that I think about often. Was there a distinct moment when you were studying abroad that you knew my mental health is being challenged here and you knew how to combat that, or you knew that something was wrong and you were looking for ways to fix it?
For me, the moment was, a lot of classes abroad tend to be a little easier because they want to allow you to have more time to really experience the place you're at. But a few classes are harder, and the hardest class I've ever taken at Notre Dame, I took in London. It was biochem. So yeah, just the name itself is scary. So after my first exam, I didn't do very good at all. So then the next exam was like, okay, I'm going to dedicate a lot more time to it. I'm going to study hard. And I was studying harder than I've ever studied before.
Yes.
And then like a couple of days before the exam, I really felt it. Like sometimes you can really feel when your mental health is like being challenged and like dragged through the mud. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to maintain this. So that was the moment for me. Like studying for that second exam was tough.
I think my moment, so I had a lot of racial challenges while I was abroad. The program was very small in Dublin. It was 50. I know like London is probably like double that. So there was only 50 of us. I was the only black girl, again, coming to Notre Dame from a high school that was not all white. That also threw me off. So when I say that, like, that experience kind of took me back to that first semester freshman year, that's kind of what I mean. And so kind of feeling very isolated and alone already, but then also trying to navigate spaces and being the only one and not feeling like I had anyone that I could go to just from a lack of representation. I made great friends while I was there, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there were certain things that they were never going to quite understand from my own personal experience. And so as I started to kind of get into the groove of the semester and I started to kind of feel that loneliness, that isolation, I think that's the moment when it hit for me, because I was trying to make the best of every day and every moment because I was abroad and I was doing all these cool things and I was seeing all these cool things. But at the same time, I was really feeling that kind of overwhelming negativity as well. And so trying to balance the both of those out and still trying to make the best of my time there. I think that was kind of the moment for me, was realizing that, kind of feeling the conflict between you're not alone at all, but you feel so alone at the same time.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if there was any like specific moment. I would agree that classes do tend to be easier abroad, especially Irish universities. They are mostly based on papers, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but it was like basically like 1 or 2 papers for the entire semester, and that was your grade. So like all of your grade isn't basically writing on 1 or 2 assignments for the semester, and it's very, very easy to put that off until the last minute. But then, you get to a point where it's like, you have a 10-page paper due in like 2 days and you haven't started because you've been busy like doing all these other things that like study abroad comes with.
And you're in a new country and you want to explore.
Exactly, and it's like you don't really think about these assignments while you're out exploring, and then you get to that point where it's like, okay, now I have to really buckle down and work, and it's just like the 2 most stressful days you'll ever have, because it's just everything's riding on that one assignment. 50% or 100% of your grade is riding on that assignment. And those are like extremely stressful days for me. And like I would just like hold myself up in a cafe, sit down for like 7 hours and just try to finish this essay. And I realized like that's not like a very good way to like go about your study abroad experience. Like I feel like I had like very high highs, and also like when those days I was doing essays, it was like very low.
very
low.
low.
So I don't think that was very sustainable, but you do kind of have to balance that. Like, yes, classes are easy, but then like you do have to put in some work and not just push it off the entire time.
No, yes, I definitely agree. And then the reason why I really wanted to hear from you guys about if something happened while you were abroad, if something affected you, whether that's academics, whether that's your ethnicity, whether that's you having a culture shock. I just think it's super important for other students to understand and know what can happen abroad and how you can combat those things, and also just how you can realize that it's nothing that's wrong with you, it's that everyone is different. And I think it's super important that we vocalize these experiences and that we have representation for all students, because then they are able to, again, deal with those experiences themselves. And of course, it's not going to erase all of those things, right? Because our world is our world and we're going to have those experiences, but it's important for them to know that they're not alone. So thank you guys all for sharing your experiences. That's super important to me, and I really appreciate you guys being vulnerable enough to share these experiences, again, with me, and then also with students and faculty and staff that will see this. And with that, I was thinking about when I studied abroad, how I had this sense of guiltiness because I was abroad, and that like my family or my friends couldn't have those same experiences I did. And I was wondering if you guys felt the same, because I want to know. Yes.
Yeah, for me, like so I'm from a low income background, and my parents are also not US citizens, so to get into Ireland they would have to get a visa, which is just like a long process, takes like a couple of months to do it. So like during my time abroad, like they weren't able to, like they didn't feel like they had time to apply for a visa, so they couldn't come visit me, but like everybody else in my cohort, all their parents visited, and that was like kind of like sad for me to like be like one of the only people whose parents like didn't come and see them in Ireland, and like I couldn't really share, like you said, I couldn't share that experience with them. Like obviously I loved having my cohort and I love having like the friends that I made there, but I think it would have been nice to kind of be able to like show my parents like I'm doing like okay here and I love it here and I want you guys to like be here, because they've also never been to Europe either, so it would have been nice to share that with them. And I think that also like kind of like took a toll on my health, mental health especially, because I did feel that sense of guilt for, I'm here, I'm traveling, I'm having fun, while my parents are like back at home working to put me through this experience. So yeah.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to acknowledge that, because that's something that you don't think about when it's not your experience. And I guess that also just kind of speaks to everything that we're talking about here today, and kind of all the complexities of what you will feel when you're abroad, and how everyone is different, and how we should all be supporting one another in that, because not everyone's experience is looking the same. I think for me, I didn't necessarily feel guilt, but I did feel like I had to make the best of it, because my parents had never had that opportunity. One thing that my parents have always stressed to me and my siblings is that everything that we do for you guys is so that you guys don't have to go through what we went through when we were growing up. And so it's very, very important to me to make the best. They've gotten me all the way here. Like, sure, I had to get the grades, but my parents are very, very important and a very critical factor as to how I was able to be here today. And so I think that for me it was more so just like I owe them everything, and I'm going to do everything that I can, because I know that they didn't have this experience, and I know that this is what they want for me and for my other siblings. And so it could have been guilt, I guess, but I guess it's just kind of about how you see it and kind of like the lens that you're looking through, the perspective that you're taking. So.
No, I felt a little bit of it too. One thing about me, I post a lot. Like, I like to post what I'm doing, especially if I'm in a place like London where I'm seeing all sorts of new stuff. And I got a lot of people from back home swiping up saying, "Oh my God, that's so cool! Like, I'm so jealous." But when you keep getting those messages, it kind of hits you. Like, it makes you appreciate more like the opportunity you've been given. But then it also makes you like realize there's a lot of people that never got to have the opportunity because of different circumstances in their life or different things like that. So it's like, made you think, damn, like I really wanted to, like you were saying, I really want to take advantage of what I'm doing and to fully experience it, but I also don't want to forget how lucky I am to even be here.
Yes. So. Thank you guys again so much. I just want to take a really quick deep breath, because we are talking about things that are super important and that also very, like I feel a lump in my throat and I haven't even talked about my experiences that much, but I just want us all on the count of 3 to take a deep breath. So 1, 2, 3. And letting it go. I just like doing that because I don't know, like I literally Okay. I have breathe tatted on my rib cage because sometimes I literally forget. And that it's so important to just remind yourself, like, girl, breathe. Like, it's okay. It's going to be fine. Thank you guys again so much for sharing your stories while you were abroad. This is just making me so happy because we are talking about something that's so important that we don't talk about and that is seen as taboo. And I want to ask you guys, why do you think mental health is such a stigma, and what do you want to do to make it not that way, to reverse it, to open it up for other students, for people, humans in general, to be more vulnerable? Because something that I remind myself is that vulnerability is the greatest way of leadership. Us sharing our stories, us being so real, so raw with everyone who will be seeing this video, it will allow them to be the same. And I just think that's super important. So again, why do you think it's a stigma, and what do you want to see in the future in combating that?
I could go first. So
Okay.
I think it's for two main reasons as a stigma.
Okay.
One of the things, like you were talking about, is being vulnerable, especially in this like age of social media. I feel like talking about your struggles and different challenges you're going through, especially when it comes to mental health, a lot of people will see that as weakness. And on social media, we don't want to post our weaknesses most of the time. So one thing to change that is, like, for leaders, people like us, student leaders on campus, having things like this where we talk about the things we went through, but not just talking about it to just be like, you know, trauma dumping, but talking about how we got through that or how we think we could better navigate it. And then the other thing is, I think a lot of times when people think about mental health struggles, they like to think about the extremes. Like, people think, oh, if you're struggling with mental health, either you're crazy or you're depressed. Like, that's
Yes.
not all there is to it. It's so much more. There's levels to it. Like, you know, you just because you're struggling with mental health doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It's a normal thing that everyone goes through it. So I think if people would realize that it's a normal thing to go through, and if you talk to the right people, you know, use the right resources, there's a way to get through it. So
I think I would even take that second point a step further. Again, like you were saying, normalizing the use of that word. Depression, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're depressed? Like, oh my God. Like, but when you think about it, and I'm a psychology major, I'm actually taking a course right now called Abnormal Psychology. And even the title of the course I just hate, because it automatically, there's this abnormal, normal binary. And if you feel like you're anywhere near the abnormal side, you're like, oh, like this is just, like there's just no way that I could ever,
this could be me.
yeah, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. We're so quick to pathologize everything. And
Yeah.
so that already, again, that makes people feel weak. That makes them feel scared to be vulnerable. That makes them feel afraid to admit to what it is that they're going through. And so even just this idea of normalizing those terms, normalizing these struggles, that already will help people to feel empowered to be able to speak up about what they're feeling and get the help that they really do need. And I think that another, again, speaking to that abnormal, normal binary, if we kind of stop using the word abnormal as this idea of just because you're a little different than everyone else, that doesn't mean that you need to be locked away in a room and just fed medication. Like, there's ways to use therapy to get through certain things, and there's ways to treat things other than kind of just like those more extremes, kind of what you were speaking to. So yeah, kind of breaking away this abnormal, normal binary a little bit better.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with kind of having like mental health problems as being like a sign of weakness, especially coming from like an Asian household. And I don't know if you guys felt the same thing in your household as well, but kind of like I don't really talk about this stuff with my parents at all, and it's just like kind of, it's hard to acknowledge the fact that like you need help in certain things, or like I don't even really tell my parents like that I get burnt out. Like whenever they call me and I like say like, yeah, school's doing fine, and like most of the times it is doing fine, but there's also like moments in school where I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this. I just kind of want to like sit here and do nothing, and that's like not really like a good way to feel, obviously. And I think a lot of people do think that they're alone in that, and because you don't really talk about it, you don't know that other people are going through the same thing. And I think part of it is just being able to be open, being able to like tell your friends, like even if you're confiding in one person, like your best friend, you don't have to like share it out on social media with the world, but I think just talking about it with one person can very much help. And, you know, conversations like these that we're having right now, just showing that like we do have, we know we did struggle while abroad. You may think it's like all like, you know, happy, worry-free time, but like there is a lot of stuff that you do have to deal with living in another country and living with, because you are still like a college student, you have academics, you'll have academic stress, you'll have stress with adapting to a new environment, and there's a lot of things that come with that, good and bad.
Right, exactly. And some things that I really want to unravel right here is that a lot of times, especially being that we are all from minority households, a lot of things are categorized and also stereotyped. So a lot of times adults will say, children don't know what they're talking about. They don't have these feelings, when children really do. Children are the most awake. And by that I mean they know what they're feeling. They express it, which is important. People will say they're throwing tantrums, like they are simply expressing the way that they feel. And the reason that they're making such a big deal out of that moment is because no one is listening. And then you also have, when you're born into a religious household, and you have this complexity, or really it's like, do I go to God to talk about my problems, or do I go to therapy? Well, you can do both. Like, that it's important to notice those things. And then you also think about the stereotypes of being in a Black minority household. Boys are supposed to not be emotional. They're not supposed to express their feelings. They're supposed to stand up. They are supposed to be the authoritative figures in a household. But again, like I said in the beginning, vulnerability is the greatest form of leadership. And if you have someone leading your household where they are not expressing their emotions, just think about how their partner is going to end up, how their children and their children and their children are going to end up. There's so many different, again, complexities, categories, stereotypes that are limiting us from being humans and also being the greatest beings that we can be. And I think it's super important that you guys all notice that, because we are the next generation, and whatever we do will affect our generations to come, the people that come from us, and then also how we, talk to our friends, how we talk to our teachers, our professors, how we talk to workers in LaFun and, Student Duncan Center. It's a domino effect. What we do can affect someone else. And I think it's, again, super important. And I'm very thankful that you guys realize that these are things that we need to talk about. So with that being said, how do we control, or how do we manage our mental health daily? Because I heard you guys talking about, we need to normalize that mental health isn't depression. It's not being on the floor crying for several hours. It can be something so small that can trigger you, that can have you unfold into that deep depression. So how do you guys battle that on a daily basis, or how do you guys manage that on a daily basis?
I think it's important to prioritize things that bring you joy, especially when you feel as though you're in a space where you're kind of fighting for your joy all the time.
Yes.
Because you have assignments on top of assignments, because you have 5 million things that you have to do from day to day. So finding those moments, like you said, even just breathe, finding those moments to indulge in something that makes you happy, whether it be taking a walk outside on a warm, like windy day, or whether it be listening to music, whether it be reading a book or watching a movie, whatever it is whatever you're working out, whatever your thing is, just taking the time to really feed yourself whatever that thing is, because at the end of the day, those little things will kind of really offset all those bad things. I think a lot more than we allow ourselves to believe. And also prioritizing, giving yourself that time to do that. Again, when you have 5,000 things to do, set aside that time. Don't say, oh, well, if I just finish this assignment first. If you said you were going to stop at 5 o'clock, stop at 5 o'clock. I personally am very big on going to sleep. If I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to stay up anymore studying for an exam for 5 extra hours, whatever it is, especially when I'm crunching. Like, it's just not going to do me.
Right.
The psychologist in me has now learned that does not help me. So if I'm tired, I go to sleep. So that's my thing. So just being able to prioritize kind of those moments or whatever those things are that make you feel happy, or that make you feel relaxed, or that help you to decompress.
Exactly.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because you really hit it like right on there. Exactly what I was going to say. Just making time to do something you really enjoy every single day.
Yeah.
And that'll help you, like it'll help your academics too, because one thing we don't realize, you're supposed to take study breaks. And I feel like we don't do that as Notre Dame students.
No, we just go straight to it.
No, it'll help you study. If you it doesn't have to be long either. It can be 5 to 20 minutes. Just go read your book, or go take a little walk, go take a breather, like you were saying. And that will help, because it'll help you refocus. I feel like a lot of times when we're studying, we feel that fatigue, and we know that what we're reading, we're not really retaining. But we
Yeah.
just do it anyway.
Yeah.
No, you got to go take that break and then come back to it, and it'll really help you. So.
Yeah, for me, what really helps me, like, I prioritize just getting out of my room and actually going out and doing stuff. So for me, like, at Notre Dame, my study breaks are either taking a walk, mostly going around the lakes, or going to mass. Like, daily masses usually only last, like, 20 minutes, so it's like a nice little short period of time for a break. And in Ireland, it was kind of like the same thing, because Ireland is very much like you walk everywhere in Ireland,
Yeah.
which is really, really nice for me, because I love, like, going on walks just alone. So I think, like, out of all the days that I spent, like, in Galway, I pretty much only stayed inside for, like, the entire time for one day, and that was because there was a storm outside and they told us not to go outside. But every other day I would either be like, I don't know, just like walking around campus. I'll, like, get out of my room and, like, go to the library or something, or meet with, like, one of my professors. There was, like, I joined, like, a kayaking club. I did that for a couple days.
I love that.
And then, like, every other day I would go to, like, a cafe downtown, or just, like, walk around downtown, like, try out a new restaurant, go to, like, places in Galway that I hadn't been to before, because I felt like I hadn't explored the town, like, as much as I should have, because I had been traveling so much. So just taking the time for yourself to actually, like, go out, because for me, like, being in nature and actually being outside really helps me a lot. And I felt that, like, I've just, like, it's so easy to get cooped up, especially in the Notre Dame bubble, where it's just, like, everybody stays inside all the time.
Exactly.
So I think, like, for me, going outside is really, really helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Really quickly, I just want to add, like, journaling, the simple things like journaling, video diaries of yourself, talking with your friends. I do this thing called the angry letter. When I'm really upset about something, I write, like, the most disgusting, hurtful things about the thing that I'm upset about, and then I rip it up, I throw it away, and it's like a symbol of letting everything go, but also expressing that anger or, you know, being upset in that moment. But lastly, really quick to wrap this all up, again, I'm so happy right now. Thank you guys so much for vocalizing your stories, sharing with us some very vulnerable and key moments that you had studying abroad and in your life in general. But I want to know, do you have any advice for future cohorts who will have their abroad experience, and also just students on the Notre Dame campus that could benefit from your advice?
I think in terms of going abroad specifically, is just make the most of every moment.
Yes.
And you're in a new place. There's all these different things that you're never going to see again if you never return. Once you go back home, you're never going to be in London again. Like, those kinds of things, take advantage of every moment. Like you were saying, that's something that I did too, is like go to a new cafe every day to do homework. When I would do my work, I would go to a new coffee shop. I would find someplace new to sit, just have some different angle, some different perspective. Because again, once you come back home, you're not going to have that anymore. And when you get back home, you're going to feel very complacent again, and you're not going to prioritize kind of those little moments. So make the best of those little moments while you're there, because you won't be able to access them once you're back. I miss Dublin every single day. I miss all the people that I met. I miss all the places that I went, all the things that I was able to see. And so just honestly trying something new, going out, doing something that you wouldn't normally do, and just try your best to make the best of your experience.
Okay.
One piece of advice I would give is, if you went with a group of your friends, definitely try your best to maintain those friendships. And if you didn't, try and step out of your comfort zone, make some new friends, and try and maintain those friendships. Because when you're so far away from home, a lot of times your support system isn't really in the same place. It's not as close. So you want to find a new support system and really maintain that. Because when you're away in a different country, you definitely don't want to be feeling like you're alone, because that won't help your mental health at all. So even if you're introverted, try and make some new friends, because I'm a little introverted, so sometimes it's hard for me to make new friends. But try and step out of your comfort zone, make some new friends, form some new bonds, and that will help you.
Yeah, especially people native to the place where you are.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say, kind of along the lines, and like the native, kind of like local people, I would say just like immerse yourself in the local culture as much as you can, because I think like one thing that people think about going study abroad is that like you have so much time to travel outside of your country, but for me, I stayed mostly in Ireland, and I got to know like certain people in Galway very, very well. Like my entire cohort got very, very close with our program coordinator, and we relied on her a lot. And also like I would go to like this one cafe all the time, and I got to know the people who worked at the cafe very well because I would always be there, and they would know my order as soon as I came in. And it was nice to be able to just, you know, talk to them even for like a temporary amount of time, because I think that's also another problem with study abroad that I had, is like going to Galway, like my entire thinking was like, I'm only gonna be here for like 3 months, like it's not really worth it, like joining a club and like being so immersed in it and then just leaving. But I think like if I had one thing that I could change, I would kind of immerse myself into the Galway culture a little bit more, just kind of like being more open to like the experiences, like kind of in like the first couple of weeks really trying to get to know the locals a lot more, because I think I was a little late on that. I think I still did a pretty good job in immersing myself in the Galway culture, but I wish I had kind of like started that a little bit earlier into my time there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining me in this conversation today, Bianca, Naya, Naz. This really made my day, and I really hope that you all know that these conversations are super important, and they will change the mindsets and the lives really of students that will be studying abroad, and anyone who's watching this video. And I want to end by saying thank you all so much for listening to these experiences. I hope that you all learned something from them. I hope that you can relate to some of these stories. And I want to end by saying, anyone who is watching, your identity, I always say this, but your identity is not a burden, it's a power. And the way that you move, the way that you walk is affecting someone else. So hold your head up high, continue to be the person that you are. And again, for any student who is watching that will study abroad in the future, please know that you have resources. Please know that we are here for you, and there are previous students who studied abroad. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today.